Last but not least, the moderator of the panel discussion is Ms. L. Kwan, Vice President of APA. This webinar first proceeds with 3 presentations from the speakers, followed by a panel discussion moderated by Ms. L. In the panel discussion, we'd like to include questions or comments from the audience as much as possible. So please don't hesitate to write your comment in the chat box in English. In case you need to write that in Japanese, you are also welcome to do so. Ms. L can pick up English comments by herself, and if the comments are in Japanese, I'll try my best to translate them to her. We want this webinar to be interactive between the speakers and the audience. So please help us to do so by your kind and active participation.
Okay, good afternoon once again, everyone. My name is El Kwan. I'm the Vice President of APARA, that's Asia Pacific Assistive Robotics Association. And I'm also founder of a health tech startup called MedHive. Now, I have the privilege of bringing together our 3 expert presenters to join me in a panel discussion. So the good news is you, our dear audience, will all have the opportunity to ask your questions. You can do that by typing via the chat box, and we will try to get them all answered, time permitting. All right, so you've all heard of the presentations of different learning models from our speakers. And this panel discussion will be a free-flowing exchange of insights, experiences, ideas from our speakers. And it will also be a chance to be interactive. So our panel members, so please allow me to briefly reintroduce them, starting with our first presenter, who gave an overview of how learning can be fun. He also suggested that emerging technologies have been the catalyst to create alternative pathways to learning. Joining this webinar from Singapore, welcome back, Mr. Oliver Tian. And our second presenter joins us all the way from Finland. Professor Vesa Salminen gave a he gave a macro view of global trends and development, and then homing in with the use cases from Finland and some of his research work. And then our third presenter is joining us from Hong Kong. Professor Xiao Keng gave a specific discussion on the impact of AI and metaverse on learning, as well as the implications. So welcome back, Professor Xiao Keng. So I know everyone is excited for us to be speaking to our 3 global experts. All right, so I'll throw in the first question to Oliver, because I'm sure, you know, with what the audience would be sharing, that these learning models that have been shared will prevail, and emerging tech will shape the future of learning. How can we make it fun? How can we make it engaging to learn while allowing learners to explore their full potentials? You know, how can emerging tech help to accomplish all of this?
Well, I think that's actually a very important question. Conventionally, over time, we have seen that generally the learners tends to look upon the teacher as the guru who knows it all. But we all know today that with the expansion, the explosion of knowledge, there's a lot more that we can acquire. And I briefly look at the question you asked earlier, whether, you know, the education model will change. And so far, all the answers seems to be pointing to a simple yes.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
It is clear that we all know it will change. The question is going to be, how will it change, and how can we make it fun? I like what Professor Xiao Keng shared in terms of the use of AI and metaverse, right, in the whole learning process. You know, you get a little bit more hands-on. You don't see a 2D diagram on a piece of paper, but you get to see things happening. And the videos that Professor Vesa shared from Korea It's really engaging, right? The examples he showed in terms of the engineering students, right, being able to feel and touch and go beyond a 2D text to actually immersing themselves into the environment they're looking for. I see that as something that's definitely coming our way, right? The important thing is how can the learners and the educators believe in that mindset and start to shift themselves into doing so as well. So adopt those technologies, look upon those technologies as options to augment our learning for capability and potential. And I want to emphasize the word augment, not replace, right?
Right.
Augment because it will support us and help us learn a lot better. Professor Xiao King's example about computation, right? We do a lot of mathematics and we do a computation, a calculation ourselves. But what is very important is that now with technology, we do not want to calculate faster than the computer. We want the calculator to give us some of these sub-answers and we deal with more complex problems, more complex questions by using the power of computer to support what we can achieve better. Right. So if we think of it from that angle, there's a lot we can do. And if we become a lot more results-oriented in terms of my presentation earlier for the learning agility, we can do a lot more. We can scale past, the different generations. And before you know it, you're going to find that our generations don't repeat itself every 20 years. We have to repeat itself every 5 years. Yeah.
Right.
So that's my view on it.
Thanks, Oliver. Professor Xiao King, do you have any additional thoughts on this?
I think this is really important to make it fun. And I still remember that Oliver and I, we were both from Singapore, and we have a lot of Japanese audience as well. We know that the Asian education system is very stressful. It was very exam oriented. I still remember that when Oliver and I were in the university, we learned one whole year, maybe 10 classes, 10 courses. And then we took the exam at the end of the year for about 2 weeks. So 10 courses are determined in 2 weeks. How much you have learned? You are sick that 2 weeks, that's it, you are gone. And maybe your entire career is gone, right? So that becomes really stressful. And I think the Western education systems, where we can have more of the weightage assigned to daily work, when I'm in the US, I really like it. Yeah, so there's more balance. And the other thing that I would think about this on the chat room, Kinichi Furuhata. So thank you very much. I think that's a very interesting question. Individual character formation. We have been talking a lot about this AI, metaverse, how we transform education, how we can make our students make more money, get better jobs, have better career development. Very few people talk about this. Individual character formation, very important. How are we to make sure that they actually learn and to have the right character in the future? For example, in the online environment, in the gaming environment, so let's say gamification of learning. We sometimes use a lot of those games, shooting games. That's totally not really a nice way to teach our kids to start shooting all the time. Even to score A, you have to shoot something. Okay, so we want to make sure that we have the proper character development software and environment for our kids to learn and grow. And I mentioned about the danger of metaverse, very dangerous for youngsters, teenager kids, where they are still learning all this character formation stage. If they are not properly guided or monitored, very dangerous. Right. So that's a very important point that this Kinichi Furuhata mentioned. So thank you. Very interesting point.
Thank you. And you did mention about balance, how the Asian way of education is really stressful. I actually have a question for Professor Vesa, but before my actual question, can I tie in, like, what makes Finland the happiest? What makes you the happiest? Like, what's in your environment that makes learning probably easy? Is there something that you can share to us Asians? What is in your environment that makes it different, and what makes you the happiest people in the world?
So I have normally said that why we are the happiest country in the world, nobody knows. But because we have 1,300 kilometers common border with Russian, and so we are extremely happy they stay on their side of the border. But we have tried to be, honestly, we have tried to be, the answer to your question, we have tried to be very open to new technology and new opportunities, new methodologies. And so we try to form like I'm following whole time trends. That's why Oliver's committee meeting has been very, very good for me because I learn a lot of those AIBotics conference or workshops what we have had, and but picking up pieces of there and involve people to test new methodologies, new tools, and then you have to make objective.
Okay.
We take this one, we
Sure.
adapt this one in our environment. Otherwise, nothing happens, and also educate the teachers.
Right. So you are open to these new learning methods. So how can current systems, how can what we have now, how can these systems assess and establish a roadmap to retool the current infrastructure so that we can adopt these new learning methods properly?
Can I show a slide? So this is the way, I don't know if you can see it. But,
yes, we can see it. All right.
Yeah, this is the way we normally work, so that you have to take into account the inheritance, the present. What's the situation at this moment? And then because we are following the trends, we have to, and we make foresights. And we make a couple of scenarios according which we just fix the goal on a certain time scale, and then we align our strategy where to start first, what's the next step, what's the third step, and then it's when technology is changing, you got to do this continuously, this strategy process. And that's what I do with our management team in University of Applied Science, so that we could be ready to take some new methodology, what we test first, and then we adapt it in our environment. But this is type of process we make. But if you don't make goal setting on certain time, you are just testing everything, but you don't adapt anything, and people are not involved.
Okay. All right. So, Oliver, would you like to add something to that?
Yes.
And after,
Vessel, could you just show that diagram again?
Okay, I can find it.
I believe that diagram makes a lot of sense, and I'm sure the audience may have some comments around this, right? The fact that how the whole process becomes iterative, right? And the whole process looks forward and backward in learning. And I see future learners or the learners of the coming generation looking at such a model. Right, it is not just something that you learn and for the next 20-30 years you don't have to relearn. I take this message from Alvin Toffler's book, The Third Wave, right, where he mentioned the illiterate of the 21st century, and this is where we are today, is not those who have not gone to school, but those who are unable to learn, unlearn, and relearn, which kind of weave in Professor Xiao's comment about the fact that we need to really adopt how things can be done. So with technology at our doorsteps, we will really see knowledge evolving, contents being extended. So we need to know that if a particular technology is outdated, we need to unlearn it and relearn. And that's going to be very powerful. And this diagram shows that process of going forward and going back, because you need to unlearn and then relearn new things. So this is a very powerful diagram that I think the audience will benefit from appreciating what we're talking about. And because you're going through this process of learning, unlearning, relearning, you have to make learning fun. Right? It has to be flexible, it has to be unlimited, and more important, never ending. Back to you, El.
Right, never ending. It has to be flexible, unlimited, never ending. All right, I would like to invite the audience to type in your questions on our Q&A. There's a function at the bottom of your screen. You can type in your questions. We can, okay, now I'm going to check, because an anonymous attendee has commented that it's probably difficult for Japanese teachers to give good marks to creative things. I think this is in relation to an earlier presentation. Is there a school education system in the countries of our panelists that can give high marks to creativity? That's an interesting question. So who would like to take first take on this question?
Let me jump in here.
All right,
let me
sure.
jump in here. Yeah, I had the benefit of working 2 years with a institution called the Japan-Singapore AI Center. I spent 2 years with this institution, which is a collaboration between the government of Singapore and Japan. And I was assigned to an international center in Tokyo for 6 months, living there and working with the Japanese to understand how it works. So I have a little feel about this question. So thank you, Mr. Anonymous attendee, for the question. I guess culturally, we may look upon learning with different aspects, right? It is true that the Japanese system tends to be a lot more systematic, logical, and sequential in process. Yeah, but I'm also seeing that slowly and surely, the mentors and the educators in Japan are starting to open up to look at how technology can support them in their teaching methods. Right now, the system of assessment probably needs to be further considered and adapted to bring in this technology. But I know the educators, the Japanese teachers are opening up quite a lot, and that's really good news. Now we need to change the system, and to change the system is not going to be an easy process. Hopefully through discussions like what we have in this panel, and of course maybe some of the audience who are not question could go back and think about it, and together we can make a movement to help our next generation adopt a more effective, flexible, and fun way in learning. So back to you, Al.
Right, so more collaboration, more platform, more forum for us to talk and get problems like these solved and answered. Okay, we have a very limited time actually on my clock. I have like 4 minutes left, but I have just one last question for everybody, which is like a closing question. But before that, can you quickly answer this? Because I think this is very important. How do you manage data in a learning environment? Anybody who would like to take on? I think Professor Vesa, you may want to share a bit on this before we do the closing question.
Yeah, so that we need to understand the process. How do you make learning assignment? Like in metaverse, you need to make a blueprinting a processor function first and create digital twin of environment, then virtual content creation, and finally integration of physical virtual like mixed reality immersive technology. And I have to understand it as a process. That makes it much easier to adapt it in education programs and education environments.
Okay, all right. So I will now ask my final question, and this will take a bit of time. That's why I know we have 3 minutes more, and each of our panelists will share more than a minute, I'm sure, because we have been talking about emerging technologies and the vision of a fun, engaging, effective, and just-in-time learning. So, gentlemen, how far can we go to achieve this dream? You know, to add to that, what will it cost us to get there? All right, so shall I now request Professor Chowking to probably start the ball rolling?
Okay, thank you. I think that's an interesting question. How much will it cost us to get there? So maybe I'll reverse the question. How much will it cost us if we do not get there? Right. So I think the countries have to look at this as an investment, the potential, especially now we still have this concept of countries. As I was saying that it's good that the border between Finland and Russia still stays the same border, right? So we still have this country concept, unfortunately. So a country has to compete with one another for economics development, etc. So it's just like how much money should you spend on security, okay, in a company. It depends on how valuable your data is. If you lose the data, people are going to sue you, you're going to get bankrupt, you spend more. So it's a case-by-case basis. But I think it will be very costly if we do not seize the opportunity and take on this challenge to transform our education so that we develop a good education system for our students, for our kids, for the future. Okay, so that's very important. Yeah.
All right, thank you for your insight. So, Professor Vesa, would you like to share with us your ideas on this?
It mostly depends on your own learning capability, understanding the opportunities and making common decision how to proceed further. And from my point of view, every teacher should have a curious mental mindset. And also in the industry, the staff should have a curious mental mindset, ready to learn more and test opportunities in their own applications, solutions, or environments.
Thank you very much. And then Oliver, perhaps you can share with us what you think and probably put a close on our discussion and hand over to Ms. Emmy.
Yeah, actually a very good question. How much do we need to invest in this change? And I guess Professor Chowking have kind of alerted us on what if not, and that's a very important point, right? The world is changing so fast. If we do not take a hard look at our current education system, whether it is in the K-12 environment or whether it's in the professional training, we will not be able to evolve with time, right? I give a simple example, right? A lot of elementary school, especially in the English environment, talks about spelling as an important aspect of learning. We learn to spell the words and teachers spend a lot of energy, right? A lot of assessment is placed on getting the young students to learn how to spell. But a smart kid today, and I've got a few that came to me and say, why do we need to learn how to spell? Because if we type the word wrongly onto the editor changes for us and give us the correct spelling, right? So the thing here is not to learn how to spell. The thing here is to understand the words and how we can reference those words to the context that you're using. And that is a skill that we need to start to learn early. So the price of not changing, right, is going to be very expensive for us when these children go to work. And likewise, when we talk about the professionals in the private sector, in the organ industry, they also need to understand that it is not just blind memory that's important. It is really understanding how that content can be applied into their working environment. And there is a whole discussion, which probably we don't have time to go into, is learning in the flow of work. As you work, you're able to learn and pick up that content, build it into your work processes, and be able to mine your process to become more efficient. So there is a price for not doing it. I think that's going to be a lot more expensive than doing it. So it is definitely encouraging for all of us to look at the education system that we have today and how we can, achieve it. I'm just looking at the question and the anonymous audience actually talk about creativity, and that is the skill we will need in the remaining 21st century, right? It is not memory, it is not reproducing from content that's available, but really how to be creative, how to be innovative, and that is a skill which I think at this point in time, technology is not able to fully support, but can augment a human teacher to support and build the creativity, innovation skills in the learner. Back to you, Al, if you have any other further comments.
I actually am, very much in awe of the expert opinion that our panelists have shared this afternoon. Clearly, it is not enough to have 90 minutes for this very important discussion. Hopefully, we can see each other again in other forums and other events. Could be a face-to-face event, but thank you so much. I'd like to thank all our speakers, Professor Xiao King from Hong Kong, Oliver Tien from Singapore, and Professor Vesa from Finland. And my name is El Kwan, Vice President of APARA. With that, I will return the stage mic to Emmy-san.
No, El, I'll take it from here.
Okay,
I guess
sure.
I'll take off my hat as a speaker, but now as the official representative from APARA. APARA wishes to express our gratitude to JST, Japan Science and Technology Agency, for co-hosting this webinar with us. Of course, with great thanks to our speakers from Hong Kong, from Finland. I think this is a very innovative discussion. We certainly would encourage the audience and the speakers to get a chance to mix and talk further about it. We want to thank JST in Japan for driving this particular theme that we can pick up and share a very insightful discussion on the fun in learning. Remember, learning is flexible, unlimited, and never ending. So with that, great thanks to all the speakers, to JST, to APARA, and Al Kwan for moderating.